This week's edition of Church Media Design TV is sponsored by danzinkandtoner.com and the Church Media Design TV store. Welcome to another edition of Church Media Design TV, tips, tricks, and how-to for you, the church media designer. I'm your host, Brad Zimmerman, and I come to you every week trying to help you guys use media in the church to effectively increase God's kingdom. We want to use the media that surrounds us every day to help share the story of Christ and to hopefully bring people to Christ so that they can know His love and how much He loves us. Well, I'm joined every week by my favorite friends. It's the three wise men in Jesus. And we got Dwight Schrute, Little Whitey, the miniature version of me, Colonel Sanders, and of course, Jesus Christ, the Son of the Lord Most High. Now, this week we're going to be talking about loops and background loops. It's something that we do every single week that we use all the time as video loops. We use it behind lyrics and the whole 9 yards, or we even use it in other videos like announcement videos or whatever. And so I'm going to go through probably 3 or 4 different ways of doing loops. And this first week we're going to cover the offset method, and we're going to cover how to do that and how to make kind of a cloud scene with that effect. And so this is really simple, really basic, but after you understand how it works, it can be very effective for a lot of different uses. So we're going to be covering that as well as a bunch of other stuff. So if the three wise men in Jesus are ready, let's get into it. Well, we're going to jump into the stockpile and grab out a bunch of resources to help you out. And this week, all of our resources are kind of ministry related. And the first one actually uses ministry in the title. It's ministrycss.com. Now, this is a collaboration between Church Media and Church Relevance. But this is a really cool site that features a lot of different church websites as well as ministry websites. So you can see stuff like Newsboys and To Write Love on Our Arms, but you can also go to the church category and see a lot of different really cool sites on here, like Murphy Road, and there's just a lot of good different sites on here. And this is what we used last week when we were talking about converting a website down to crappy non-CSS external file business. Anyway, so check out ministrycss.com, get some inspiration for your church site, see some cool sites that are out there, and submit yours. If you guys think you're up to par, up to snuff, submit your website to their website. The next one is iheart.org. Now, iheart.org is something that you may have heard about. It was started by the guys from Hillsong or Hillsong United, and it was kind of a social justice movement. And they came out with a CD just a little while ago, the iHeart Revolution CD, but part of that was they shot a feature-length documentary, and this has been in editing and in progress for a very long time, and I know it took them a lot longer than they were hoping to, but they just said that it's launching in November, and they have like a preview video here that I would show you, but they won't let me download it or even see where it is stored on Vimeo. It's kind of like blocked. But one cool thing is they're showing this in movie theaters for 1 day only across the world, and so I really want to encourage you guys to go out in droves, go see this movie, and really bring people along with you who care about seeing the world affected for change. And this isn't about United in their name, but it's about this social justice movement that's going on and helping care for the orphans and widows and that kind of stuff. So check that out. And then last but not least, I always try to give you something free. And this week I have an announcement. Easy Worship has been working on Easy Worship 2009, and I've been following their blog, and they just released beta 3 of Easy Worship, which is pretty close, I'm guessing, to their final installation. But the cool thing is you can download Easy Worship 2009 for free. So head over to their website, check that out. When the final version comes out, I will be doing a review on it and letting you guys know about that software. So check that out. You can just find that at easyworship.com. You can check out i-heart.org and ministrycss.com. Well, this week we're going to jump in and start talking about how to do looping backgrounds. This is a request that I get pretty often, and I know that most of you guys are working in churches where you're using video backgrounds and that kind of stuff, and well, you need to have looping backgrounds, and why not save yourself 10 or 20 bucks, buy a mini movie instead of a looping background. So we're going to talk about the first effect that you can use to do looping backgrounds, which is the offset effect. Now, real quick, here's the background we're going to be kind of creating today. It's kind of this cloud scene here with some clouds rolling past and some kind of cool colors and that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to be creating. But first, let's show you how the offset effect works. So I'm just going to do a new comp. This is just standard widescreen, 30 seconds long. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the ellipse tool. I'm just going to draw a circle out here on the screen, and then I'm going to pre-compose this. So I'm just going to go to Layer, Pre-compose, and we'll just call this Circle. And so now we have a circle in this comp. Now if I apply my, oops, let me pull up my effects window. Effects, Controls, and let's move this right here. There we go. Okay, so now if I right click and I go down to Distort and then Offset, we can do our offset effect. Now basically all offset does is it offsets your image. So if you don't have anything on the outside of your if you don't have anything on the actual walls, top or bottom, because you can do this way as well, so we could kind of have two of them on the screen and kind of offset it like this. But what you'll see is we're getting a perfect loop. Now this wouldn't work. Let's go in here and let's edit our circle comp. And in our circle comp, if I take, there we go. If I take this circle and put it on this wall and have a little overlap, now when we do the offset, you can see that it doesn't work because it's not actually translating or moving anything on the screen. It's just taking that composition and putting one after another on each side and just allowing you to revolve it. But like I said before, if we put this someplace in the center of the screen so it's not touching any walls, we could even put it right there, go back, you can see that we have a perfect loop, and we can push this up or down and we're never going to see overlap. So it's a pretty cool, pretty easy effect to use. So now to make this clouds composition, again, the easiest way to render this, let me just reset this. Basically we're going to set our first amount to 0, and we'll set down a keyframe, and then we need to come down and we need to do double what this, actually we need to do what this comp value is. So if we do 1280, you'll see that our offset has moved from one side of the screen to the other. Now we will have an extra frame there and we'll fix that later, but that's quickly how you would animate this. So now let's name this master, because this is our master composition. We'll delete this circle out. And now we need to bring in our clouds. And what I've done is I've gone into Photoshop and I've just set up a composition here with a bunch of different cloud brushes that I found. And so you can see we have like this big huge one, we got some little guys, we got some bottom clouds, and we got another little puff of stuff. And you can see I've laid it out so there's no overlap on the sides of the screen, as well as I've kind of gotten rid of any little extras around it so that it's pretty much just individual cloud puffs. Doesn't really matter where I lay them out, I just need to lay them out on the page. Now I got these from Sebastian LeBoeuf. He's got a DeviantArt page, and you can see here he's got 5 different sets of brushes. I used a couple different ones from that, and these are really nice high-res brushes. If we go back to this document, you can see I'm only at 33% right now. If I jump up, this is 100% scale of these clouds. So they're very high-res brushes that we're using. So now we're going to jump back into After Effects and we're going to import those. So we're going to just do import file. So now what we're going to do is we're going to import these as composition cropped layers, which is going to crop all the layers to their actual size. We don't want to do footage or else it's just basically going to bring in a still frame. We don't want a still frame, we want all our layers. So we're just going to do composition crop layers, and you can see it's brought in this folder with all of these different layers. So now we get to go through and do our placement. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to have a bunch of different layers with different clouds on them, and we want to have different sizes width-wise so that we can do some parallaxing. So the ones in front are moving way faster than the ones in the back and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start with our big clouds bottom, and I'm just going to bring these in and scale these guys down. And you can see that I can line these up. Now, one thing I noticed when I was doing this, and what you'll notice here as well, let's just do layer pre-compose, and we'll just call this clouds big bottom. And if I would do my offset effect, you can see that this edge looks kind of funny. It looks fake because I had to delete it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm Alt double clicking or Option double clicking on a Mac. I'm actually going to scale this guy and kind of make my own little loop seamless background here. So I'm just going to scale this up until we get a nice, and then we're going to duplicate. So I'm just doing Control D to duplicate, and then I'm going to just link this guy up. Now what I'm going to do is change my comp settings so that we get a seamless loop here. So I'm just going to change my comp settings to, like, let's try 1500. I think might be pretty close. And if we grab both of these guys, we basically want the edge of this to show up. So comp settings, I'm just going to keep making this a little bit bigger until we get it. We can also scale it down a touch if we need to, but I'm just guesstimating for right now. So there's the edge of that guy, and let's scale these down. Oops. If I link these two layers together and scale, now when I scale this one, it'll scale both, and they won't, like, they'll scale together. Okay, let's see. That actually looks pretty close. We'll just scale this up just a hair. Perfect. Okay, so now if we go back to our circle composition, or sorry, our master composition, you'll see we have a layer here. It's a little bit wider than our stage, but that's okay. And if we do our offset, you can see that we have a perfect seamless loop here because I kind of paired these guys together, and now we have kind of a seamless loop over here as well. So we kind of have a nice perfect seam going on. So we're good to go with that one, and we could actually scale this down until we have just the width of our stage, and we can move this down on our screen to the bottom, and then let's just quickly animate this. So we're just going to set this to 0, and we're going to set down a keyframe, and then we're going to go down to the end and set down a keyframe, and our composition size, if we'll just go to comp settings, comp size is 1700, so that's how far this needs to go. So we'll just set this to 1700, and now we have a perfect loop. Now if you didn't want to go back and do that, what we can do is hit reset. This is a handy little trick. You can actually do multiplication in here, so we can do 850, which is half of our composition, times 2, and it will give us 1700. So there's a little tip for you if you're wondering how to do that. So now we just need to kind of rinse and repeat and do this with a bunch more. Our next composition, we're going to do a new comp, and I'm going to make this composition on purpose. Let's say this one is 3000 pixels. So this is our next set of clouds back, and we want these to be kind of our big guy here, and we want to do, let's say, maybe a couple of him. So we'll do one here, and then we'll duplicate that, and we'll do one over here. And we can go back to our master comp, and if we bring in, we need to name this comp big clouds. You can bring big clouds in, and now if we do our offset effect here, you can see we already have 1500. So what I'm going to do is go down to the end, do 1500 times 2. That sets down our 3000 keyframe, and then I'm going to go back here and set this to 0. And so now you can see we kind of have some parallaxing going on. So we have some clouds in the front that are rolling by slowly, and some clouds in the back that are rolling by a little bit faster. Now this is kind of actually the opposite of what we want them to do. We kind of want the back clouds to move by slower and the front clouds to move by faster. So we kind of need to change our layer order here and maybe move some things around. So these faster moving big clouds, we're just going to move them up, and they're already in front. But for now, we're just going to leave it as is. One thing I always get stuck doing on this show is I try to make stuff look perfect. And what happens when I try to make stuff look perfect is I end up spending an hour doing it instead of showing you how the effect works. So I'm not going to worry about that so much right now. I'm just going to bring this guy back to where he started, and if I wanted to, I could actually scale this layer down and, you know, do it like this and have these small moving clouds. But look at what happened. They're all moving at the same speed, and that's because I've scaled them both down to the width of the composition. I actually need that extra space on the outside so that they move faster, because it has a lot more distance to cover. But by scaling it down, I'm actually cutting that distance off, because I'm saying we'll go a lot farther but still actually only go the size of the composition. So now let's make our next one. So we're going to go composition, comp settings. We're going to make this one 6000 pixels. And this is going to be a very, oops, did not make it a new composition. 6000, we'll call this little clouds. And this is going to be in our foreground, and these are going to be our little guys. So what I'm going to do here is at the end, I know that I want to have these kind of being out of focus at the bottom of my frame. So I'm just going to kind of arrange these according to that. Now again, as long as we don't overlap anything on here, I can just kind of randomly place these wherever I want. I could actually like inverse these. So if we went to scale and unlinked and did like a -%, now that would be flipped so that we wouldn't see it. And maybe we want to make this guy, oops, let's link these back up, scale this guy up, and maybe do like this. And then let's do one more duplicate of this, but let's just kind of cut off the corner there. So you can see that down over here, all I'm doing is making sure that there's nothing on the actual edge. Now we won't be able to offset this direction, but we will be able to offset this way. So now I have like a couple different clouds that can roll by. Maybe we should change these and put this guy right on the edge. Again, this is just playing around. Scale. Let's take this down to like 50% and put that there. Maybe we'll just do a small edge of this one, and we're looking okay. So this one should be flipped though. Let's change this to a negative value, and that's just going to flip it horizontal, and then we don't look like we have so much duplication going on. So now if we bring in our little clouds, put those on top so they'll be right in our foreground. If we uncheck these guys, let's do our offset effect here. So again, we'll go down to the end, we'll set this to 6000, or we could do ×2, set down a keyframe, bring it back, throw this guy to 0, and now you can see we have our offset going, and those are moving really quickly. So now if we watch all of these guys, you'll see that we have some parallaxing going on, and we have some different cloud movement. We got some faster stuff in the back and some really fast stuff in the front. And now we're going to come to our coloring stage. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a new solid, and we'll just make a black solid, and you can see a problem here. I made all my clouds black when I really want them to be white. So what we're going to do is just go in here, we're going to do generate fill, and I'm just going to tell my fill color to be white. I'm just going to copy that and paste that to all of my other clouds, and now you can see we have black background, white clouds, kind of normal stuff. We'll put a ramp on here, so we're just going to do generate ramp, and we'll set our bottom color to, you know, a mid gray here, and we're going to set our top color to kind of full black, and then let's do a little bit of color correction on these clouds. We're just going to set these guys to like actually cancel. Let's just do this. We'll do a new adjustment layer, and on this adjustment layer I'm going to use one of my favorite new things, generate 4-color gradient. Then I'm going to just cycle through my blending modes by doing shift and the plus and minus key. I'm just going to cycle through until I get my clouds looking the way that I want them to. And so I'm just going to find one where I have some color on my clouds and some on my background, which happens to be overlay. So I have in the gray areas you can see some color shining through, but I still have a lot of white going on. And so now if we would watch this, you can see we got a lot more motion and parallaxing going on. It looks pretty nice. But one thing we do need to do is give it a little bit more depth. And the way we're going to add depth is we're actually going to add a camera into the scene. And this is where it could get a little tricky, but we'll try to keep it easy on you guys. So what we're going to do is do new camera, and we're going to set it to 35mm, and we're going to tell it to enable depth of field. And it's telling us that there's no things in 3D right now. We're just going to select these three, chuck them into 3D. And then I'm going to go to, instead of active camera, I'm going to go to my top view. And I'm going to take my big clouds bottom, and I'm going to put those guys right at the back of this frame. I'm going to take my other big clouds, I'm going to move those even further back. And then I'm going to take my little clouds and I'm actually going to move them forward. So now if we go look at active camera, you'll see things aren't looking exactly correct. Well, we're going to fix that by scaling this stuff up. So I'm just going to scale this guy until he reaches the size he was before. I'm going to do this one, scale him up until it's about where it was in the past. And then the little clouds, I'm actually going to need to scale down quite a bit. And we're just scaling this so it reaches the height of the frame. So it's actually the same size as it was, but now it's just spaced out into 3D space. And so what you can see is now we have this going on, but if we would take our camera tool and we would just rotate, we have a little bit of depth going on here. So we could actually, like if we wanted to give it a little bit more, we could go like this and just kind of chuck it on an angle so it kind of feels like it's got a little bit of depth going on with it. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to our camera and we're actually going to mess around with those depth of field options. So what I like to do is take my blur level and kick it up to like 200%. And then I take my aperture and I kick that up to like 100 pixels. That's like basically your blurriness. And then I'm going to mess around with my focal distance until I get some stuff in focus. But the biggest thing I want to worry about is that these little clouds up front are really out of focus. So I'm just going to keep moving back until these guys are out of focus, but everything else is kind of, so right here's where they get out of focus. Let's move to another spot. So we got right about here, looking pretty good. And now we can chuck on our other clouds, and maybe we can just roll our focus out a little bit further until we can start seeing some stuff out there in focus. But we want to try have a bit of depth of field. And then what I'm going to do is with these little clouds, I'm going to take their transparency and chuck it down to like 60%. So they're kind of like just this haze. And what I can do, we have a little bit of an edge going on here from the blurriness. just going to take this and move it down so we don't get that edge of those pixels anymore. And so now we kind of have this haze going on, and maybe we want to mess around with some of our positioning. And if we mess around with this ramp in the background, you can see how you got some highlight colors going on here. If I mess around with this gray point, you'll see how if I get rid of more of that, we don't get as much color in the background. And so I can mess around with that. I also could add color to it. So I could like maybe make this a blue tone and just add a little bit of color to the scene. But for right now, I think I'm just going to do more of a gray-y yellow and call that good. And then I'm going to go to my adjustment layer, which is adjusting all of the colors below it via a overlay mode. And then I'm just going to mess around with these colors and make them a little less punchy. So we're just going to kind of go in here. Let's maybe change this to a blue color and change this pink to more of a dark burnt orange, and change this guy to maybe I don't know, let's see, that red doesn't look bad, this pinkish red color, and maybe this blue is not feeling good to us. Maybe we should mess around with that and see if we find something else we like. Maybe more of a yellowish tone, yellow-green. Get a little bit more monochromatic. I don't know, the blue looks okay. So now you can see we got a little bit better looking scene here. We could adjust transparencies, we could adjust layers, so maybe we take the big clouds and move these guys up a little bit so they show up on the top a little more, and maybe we take these big cloud bottom, we move this guy just up just a hair, and then we can kind of preview along, and you can see we got a pretty cool looking background pretty quickly. So that's the offset effect. Again, I use brushes to make that happen, and if you guys have any questions about how I did this or how I colored it or any of those kind of things, make sure to email me because I want to help you guys be able to create this stuff. The one last thing that I want to show you before we're done is if you hit the home key and then the end key, you'll see, oh cool, it's a perfect loop. Everything is exactly the same. It's actually a problem because if we would render this out, we would have a stutter frame in there. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to grab these three layers that have our keyframes on them. I'm going to hit the U key, and then I'm just going to zoom in down here to the end of the timeline. I'm going to grab these three keyframes and actually move them down so they're actually past the end of the timeline. So now when we hit home and end, you can see we actually have movement going on, and it's just a little bit of movement. So now we actually have our final full composition going on. We got a little blurriness in the background. We got a little blurriness going on in the foreground. We got some stuff going on here. Again, we can mess around. Maybe we want to take the transparency back up on this guy to 100% so we have a little bit more of that haze going on. But that's your offset looping clouds background. Again, if you have any questions, email me, Brad at ChurchMediaDesign.tv. Well, this week's inspiration is some motion graphics inspiration, and I'm actually giving you guys motion graphics inspiration every day of the week via my Twitter feed, twitter.com/CMDTV. Now, Tuesday through Friday, Mondays you don't get inspiration because the show is your inspiration for motion graphics, but Tuesday through Friday I post morning motion graphics, and I do that around 11 o'clock Eastern time-ish. And these are just videos that I find inspiring and that I think are feasible for you guys. I try to stay away from videos that are too crazy, 3D animated and all that kind of stuff. I try to stick to motion graphics you can do in After Effects and stuff that you guys, I think, could pull off. Now, it might not be the whole video, but at least part of it you guys could do. So make sure to check that out. And as soon as the blog gets online, that'll be on the blog feed so you guys can check out those. But I want you guys to check out this. Shirelive Church is in Australia. It's a really cool church. They do some really great video announcements. So if you guys ever wanted some inspiration for your video announcements, you could check out stuff from them. But they did a conference a little while back, and they did this amazing conference opener, and I want you guys to check it out. With the help of Sketchbook Media, helped create this for them, but it was used at Shirelive Church. Well, this week's freebie is that cloud loop that we created earlier, and yeah, I spent a little more time making sure it looked pretty good and got some good depth of field on it. So you guys can download this. It'll be in widescreen and in full screen, WMV, as well as MPEG-4.mov file type. You can download this from the website. Use it in your church. Let others know about it. I try to post those on Twitter when they're up and try to give you guys a preview via TwitPic or something so you guys can check it out. So make sure to check this out, download it, add it to your arsenal, and put it into use, because I'm sure you guys could enjoy another free worship background. We wanted to say thank you to one of our sponsors, which is danzinkandtoner.com. Instead of wasting money buying expensive toner from stores like Staples and other big box stores, buy your toner from Dan and save a lot of money. I know we don't have a lot extra these days, so you might as well save with him. You can also check out the wholesale program to get wholesale ink and toner, as well as he has a leasing program that you can lease to own or just straight up lease and save some money using Dan's Ink and Toner. You can check out his website at danzinkandtoner.com, or you can email him here and give him a call here. So check out those and give Dan a call, and he'll help you find out what's best for your church. Our other sponsor is, well, we're kind of sponsoring ourselves. It's the Church Media Design store, which you can find at store.ChurchMediaDesign.tv. And there you can find our t-shirts that we have. You can get them in small, medium, large, and we can maybe do custom orders for you. You'll just have to call and find out. And we actually ship outside the US. It's a little more expensive to ship there, so it's a little bit more expensive for the t-shirt. But we already sold one to a friend in the UK, and we've sold them to people all over the country. So join the revolution, get yourself a CMD t-shirt, and help support the show by getting one of those. So check out danzinkandtoner.com and store.churchmediadesign.tv. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Church Media Design TV. I hope that you guys learned something this week about offset looping and that kind of stuff. Next week, we're going to be talking about fractal noise looping as we talk about how to make more looping backgrounds. If you want to know more about the offset looping technique, check out aetutorials.net. Trent Armstrong from Igniter Media has a tutorial on there that I watched, and he actually showed me some other times the offset technique and how to use that in looping. He uses it all the time, and it's a great technique, so check that out as well. The other stuff you can check out is store.churchmedia ChurchMediaDesign.tv for CMD t-shirts. Buy one of those, help us out. You can sign up for the newsletter, ChurchMediaDesign.tv/subscribe, as well as you can find me on Twitter.com/CMDTV, Brad at ChurchMediaDesign.tv. You can follow Adam at ChurchMediaDesign.tv. Adam CMD.TV, and then Adam at ChurchMediaDesign.tv. Getting confused because there's so many of them here. The other thing I wanted to say is a big congratulations to Adam. He got a job over at Dot and Cross, which they do some amazing work. They shot a TV pilot this summer, as well as they help do stuff with Numa, and it's a really cool company out in Grand Rapids. And so you can find out about their website at www. and then the word andcross.com. Very clever, hard to explain. And then his email address for that company is adam@andcross.com. So not as clever in the email, but good job. That's about all. As for me and the three wise men and Jesus, we're saying, see you later.